Morning, everybody. Michelle is here. Michelle is here on December 15th, 2025. And yeah, 15th already. So, what I'm doing is basically doing what I usually do. I talked about, I've been talking about deconstruction for a few videos because that's an encouraging point that some of us are at. It's very, very encouraging because I sense a lot of you would not have ever thought that's where you would be. That's where you are. Is in the process of deconstruction or re-examining your life. That's a fantastic thing. But at the same time, it comes with dangers, and that's why I like to just put it out there, let people know that it comes with dangers, and that's what you need to be aware of. You need to be aware of the dangers that can pose when you decide to deconstruct, re-examining your life, because for some people, you're going to be touching on internal stuff that you thought you had healed from. Okay, you thought you healed from it, but it turns out that because religion, I'm just being real honest with you. Any type of religious dogma has literally become a part of your reality, your consciousness, your psyche, your brain, your mind, your thoughts. And it's an invasion, actually. It's more serious than dementia, actually, or schizophrenic, or any of these other type of mental diseases. Okay, religion does that too. It kind of fortifies itself into your reality. And it becomes your reality. You're doing things that you never thought you would do. And sadly, it all started when you were a child, possibly when you were inside your mother's womb. Okay? Because this is generational. Religious is a generational imprint on our reality. It's an imprint, a literal imprint. And if it could be measured, just like I said with physics, they focus on supposedly the seen and the not seen, but I wonder, come on, they focus on the physicalness of stuff and don't recognize that there's a spiritual component as well, and that's what we call it. But it's nothing more, nothing less than energy. Okay, it's energy. How do you measure energy? So, and then at the same time, how do you, capture it? Like a lightning strike. How do you capture all of that? How does it start from a spark, and then becomes a strike? So deconstruction will take you to parts unknown, and so the people that are actually literally deconstructing, they've been through certain processes, and they know. They're not guessing. They're not assuming. They don't have any beliefs. They know. And chances are they knew when they were a child, after they were, after they were born, the environment they are in. Because keep in mind, newborns, toddlers, or whatever, are aware of their surroundings. They know what they hear, see, sense, and receive. They just cannot communicate it to us as to exactly what's really going on, what they're picking up. And so they can pick up criminal energy. They can tell when there's a problem in the family, because they'll show the physical effects of it, where they're crying day and night and day. They're just crying and crying and crying. I can remember one time, this was decades ago, there were two little young people, let's put it that way, I don't need to, They were two little young people. I think they were, I don't know, 3 years old or something. I don't know. But, under 5 years old. It was around the holiday season. And that's when it also kind of impulse. There's a strong frequency around holiday seasons. And that's why I told you need to make sure you are aware of that and create your own, like, for example, Christmas will be upon us, next week, right? In 10 days. And usually that stirs up a whole lot of that criminal energy. It really does. And with the religious, on top of it, because it's all, religious energy is criminal negative energy. I know that's hard for people to accept, but that's why you need to do this on your own, figure it out on your own, whereas no one has to know you're doing that so that you can protect that. I figured it out when I was very young too, and I can remember how I would cause so many problems in the family when I would question, okay, what is this, what is that, and instead of these so-called experts of a religion telling me I don't know, they'll say, well, go read the Bible. Well, I attempted to read that Bible, the one that has been revised numerous times, but nobody wants to admit that. They keep saying, oh no, it's the you can't argue with that. Unfortunately, you cannot argue with people when it comes to religion. And that's so true. A lot of people say that. Someone said that earlier this week. And that's when I knew, okay, sometimes that's all you need is for someone to say the right words. And that helps me as well as others to snap out of it too and recognize what are you attempting to reach at. So that's why, in my quest to do my share, to help and to provide services, I have to be creative and make sure that I am not going to be stepping on explosives, and so these little, or it was around Christmas time. There was two little ones there. I think we were about to open the presents, and these particular people were spending thousands of dollars on these little people, these little toddlers for Christmas. Thousands, okay? And I can remember when I was a young girl how I used to get upset too because I wasn't getting the presents that I wanted or I thought I deserved, and not recognizing my dad was the breadwinner. He was the only one working in the house, and there was a lot of us in there, and blah 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 blah. So when you're not developing yourself properly as a developing young person, you can make a lot of mistakes, and you ought to. That's the whole purpose of it all, is to make some mistakes. But then eventually, once I started meditating, and grounding myself and realizing what my reality is, I understand. And so what if I didn't get $1,000 in presents? Like I assumed that my neighborhood was doing, which was anything but true. They may have been doing that. But that's an assumption on my behalf. So these little two toddlers had like thousands of dollars worth of presents. And I don't know what in the world came over them. Something just came over them, and they started to cry. And it was two of them. And this cry was coming from deep. It was a deep-seated cry. Have you ever heard a child do that? It's like you are feeling that. And then at the time, for me, I was having some issues myself. I couldn't figure out what was going on with me health-wise. I soon determined what it was, but that cry was, it was a deep-seated cry. And this went on for hours. Okay, so a lot of parents ought to know this, because the cry was um, so deep, it started to bother adults that were there. The adults were getting frustrated and wondering why these little toddlers didn't appreciate what they had done for them. Deep. It was deep, 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 deep crying, and it was almost like a cry of for help, a cry. It was just it was that cry, and again, this went on for hours, and this was around Christmas time where everybody's supposed to be happy, and so around that Christmas time, if you're not grounded in your reality and realize, okay, what is going on around you, and toddlers are not going to know how to do that right now. Well, they can. That's one thing to keep in mind. You can start teaching your child, if you choose to, how to meditate right now, whether they're just out of your stomach, out of the mother's womb, or whatever. So, but consider that. Don't dismiss none of that, and just do what you need to do for your development and your survival as well. Your survival, your consciousness survival, your psyche, just a survival in general, without losing your motherfucking mind, literally and figuratively and metaphorically. I mean, losing it, meaning self-created man-made dementia, self-created man-made schizophrenic. It's all self-created. These are stuff that people are not talking about, because we got these experts that do not want to move from their position. Okay, that's why that Einstein theory is null and void. Okay, that won't be admitted, but I could say primal cry. It was such a cry. Let me see. That I hadn't heard before from a child. It was just so deep, and so that's original. They say is an original cry. Wow, it's an original cry, man. Basic instincts or early states of existence. Woo. And we are part of that. We are part of that lineage of energy. Whereas, our existence goes back millions of years, not 2,000, millions of years. And so we have stored within us, yes, all the information about our early existence is all within us. But so when you start deconstructing, you're going to start being impulsed by certain other realities that you need to deconstruct from, because religion tied it all in, about the role of the biological females and the role of the biological male. Religion is all over that. And you're going to have to deconstruct that as well and say, okay, who the fuck am I? Who am I? What am I? And why am I? You're going to have to be a bit harsh towards yourself, of course, but in a gentle and kind fashion. Know what that means, and say, okay, and nobody needs to know any of this. And then I'm going to make this very, very clear. You need to be really, really cautious of what you're sharing about this deconstruction process online. You can talk about bits and pieces of it like I'm doing, but I'm attempting to guide you. And of course, others are going to do the same. But you individually are going to have to sit with yourself and allow this stuff to come through you properly, so that you can handle it properly. It can be dangerous, as I said. You claim you're deconstructing from religion, which is a great thing, but if it's a part of your brain, just imagine your brain here, and parts of it, chunks of it, metaphorically, are religious. that religious energy is stirring around in your brain. You know, that is criminal negative energy, okay? But we don't need to, get people all stirred up because, but it's criminal negative energy, and it's it's going through, it's pouring through your brain, and so you're gonna have to neutralize that. You're not gonna be able to necessarily get rid of it per se, but you're gonna have to neutralize it, allow it to not affect you, just like any other porting of devices attached to you. You can look at it that way. You're just gonna have to be creative. That's all. You're gonna have to be creative. Different circuits of energy, because it's all energy. And then when you die, based on what you stored in your subconscious, your conscious, your unconscious, whatever. Just don't focus so much on that. Everything you do is stored. Okay, whether it's within you or planetary, everything is stored. Nothing goes away. Nothing escapes per se. It's just transformed into another level of this creational energy. But again, let's not be so concerned about it. So it's a modification. Yeah, when you are attempting to deconstruct, it's a modification. You're attempting to send signals one way, and then there's other signals coming this way. It's a lot of people talk about it is something about people get online and what do they call, they have a term for that, where circuits are going in other directions, rewiring. I think that's what they called it. They rewire their brain, so to speak. And so you can do that. Every word that I'm looking up right now has been commercialized. So it says it's just new wiring. It's just a new path that it takes. It says to replace or reconnect the wiring, So, and it also refers to making lasting changes to the brain's functioning. And that's so you see how hard that is. Can you recognize how hard that is? And it is. Again, some of you are not going to get through this process of properly deconstructing until another lifetime, whenever that is. But keep in mind, you have to take opportunities where they present themselves. I don't want to make this video too long, but I want to be understood. Deconstruction, as I said, is a beautiful process. Re-examining yourself, but it's going to take you to parts unknown. Because, as I've said on the last video, a lot of these processes should have taken place during your adolescence. Okay, so now you are a full-grown, physical-looking adult with wiring, different connections going on in your brain that should have been taken care of when you were in your adolescence, when you had a little bit less responsibilities and accountabilities, because, like I said, with our family, it was a big family. We all were in one, in a small house, but my dad was the protector. He definitely protected us, because I can remember some instances where we had a predator in the neighborhood, okay, but we loved him. Okay, that, let's not be concerned about that. But my dad recognized this person's predator-like behavior, and he constantly would interfere with this person attempting to get to me, because he had this fascination, obsession with me. And my dad knew it, and my dad told me about how this predator was buying gifts, and this predator would come to my dad to try to, and my dad, nope. I remember a time this predator wanted to give me a bicycle for Christmas. Oof. I didn't know any. See, I didn't know anything about it until I was much older, because I was a young child during that time when all this was happening. My dad told me, yeah, that he wanted to give me this really expensive bicycle and da 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 da. And my dad said no, and that predator was angry about it. He was so angry that it was just, he was enraged. So, but my dad was a strong. He was a strong man, but he was a gentle giant as well. He wasn't no, he was like 6'2". He was a strong man, and definitely a protector and a provider for us, and my mom especially. Oh boy, my mom. Oh boy. So again, when you go through these deconstruction processes, you may have to revisit some of your childhood stuff, but you don't want to be, in your childhood stuff, attempting to recreate the pain you so-called experienced, because who knows what you experienced? I don't know what you experienced. When I think about things that happened to me, because I've done so much work on it, there's no more attachment to whatever it was that was bothering me that I consider pain. I mean, it's gone. It's neutralized. And that's the beauty of it. So I can go back to those moments that so-called were giving me, that caused me pain and terrified me. That terrified, as I said, terrified as a child and being terrified as an adult is completely different. Okay, keep that in mind. And so when I revisit those areas, I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm neutralized from it. There's nothing in my past that disturbs me and bothers me. So so all I'm saying is, when you cannot take lightly something that you are planning to do. Okay, you can, and so is deconstruction right now trending? Yes, of course it is. What else is not trending? But individually, these are opportunities, impulsing you, snapping you out. Hey, here's an opportunity. And you're being somewhat forced to snap out of it and get a grip. And for a lot of people, sometimes going through this deconstruction process is not pretty. It's not pretty. So when you see people online, so all I'm saying is discernment is so important, and being careful about what you are attempting to do, to save your consciousness, to save yourself. It's just the tip of the iceberg, however. But if you can get that chunk of criminal negative energy called religion to neutralize itself, that energy of it to neutralize itself within you, literally, figuratively, and metaphorically, you're there. You're a third of the way there. But then you have to deal with other things that come up, that resurface themselves. And then you're going to have to be really honest and say, okay, how much of this I'm creating, and blah, blah, blah. So it's a process. I can help you through it. That's what I'm doing with my projects. Other people out there got their thing. I'm going to soon figure out how I'm going to assist. I can do some things one-on-one, maybe as a group, maybe. All of that, is still up in the air, because I know I know there's a bottleneck. So why pack it with more? It's a bottleneck. I know how to creatively get myself out individually, but whether I can help others to do the same, time will tell. I'll announce how I'm going to do that, at the right time. But I'm going to go ahead and stop right now. I'll talk some more about deconstruction. I mean, it is just the tip of the iceberg. So that's why I'm so thankful people are talking about certain subjects that I didn't think I would hear. I didn't think I would hear right now, especially. So it's great to know that people are thinking in another. That tells you that you are navigating through. You're changing the circuits of what your thoughts were doing for you. You're taking hold and being accountable and responsible, and that's the main thing. So universal love was always inclusive. We as humanity divided it and turned it into a commodity. Peace and love, and trust me, I'll be back.